Welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. This is the second season, the home season, where I chat with Australian writers and artists about their creative work. Today's guest is Lynsey McDonnell. She's a Perth-based CFO, she's mother of teens, and she's a debut author. Her book, Bailey Street, was published with Hawkeye Publishing last week on the 23rd of July. She found this story from an article in the paper which kind of drew her in, and in this conversation we talk about how she was drawn into the story, where she got that creative spark from, and I guess her tenacity with dealing with rejections, doing the hard work of the writing, and how going away for writing retreats really honed or gave her the time and space that she needed to get all of those words down. It's a really lovely conversation. I love chatting with Lynsey, and let's get into it, and I will see you on the other side.
I'm Lynsey McDonnell. I am a wife and a mum of teenagers and a full-time CFO by day and by night. And the writing happens in the spaces in between. So I'm a writer with my debut novel releasing in 3 weeks.
Fantastic. You have a pretty busy life. I'm wondering if you can talk to me a little bit about how you managed to fit writing in on top of being a CFO and mum and all the things.
My second book wants to know that too. Um, Magic, I swear, honestly, I think when a story comes to you and the creative magic is present, there are suddenly more hours in the day and there's more energy stores, and it just happens. I don't know, well, it certainly happened with the first one. It was just such a clear story to me when it came. There's a lot behind where the story came from, but once it arrived, it was so present for me, so fully formed in terms of the characters and where the story wanted to go, that it gave me momentum. So when I did find the little moments of time, it just poured onto the page, and there's a lot of things that help you get that momentum. But yeah, I think largely it's magic. Like when there's something special there, it finds a way in and onto the page.
Do you have a routine that you follow to make sure that writing gets done? Do you write every
Not
day?
really.
Do you?
If I was writing full time, if I wasn't working full time, I would have structure for sure. Like I would have barriers around my time, boundaries around it, and I would work in a very structured way. So it's pretty hard to do that in the spaces between. But there are things that certainly helped me along the way. So I highly value writing retreats, and I don't mean group retreats. I just have two really great friends who I write with, who have been at similar stages of their writing with me, and we would go away for a few days at a time. Separately, I would go away with each of them to Margaret River or to Broome for anywhere from 2 to 5 nights. And it was just because we're all busy in our lives, and so we would all appreciate that space to write. And it would just be full on writing all day long, like nothing else. And thousands and thousands of words would get down, and then that gives you momentum. And I love the name of your podcast because I think momentum is so important for creativity. So I would get those words down, I'd get super energized by the story again, and then that momentum would hold me. It would be a gift. Like the writing retreats were gifts that just kept on giving, because then it was so fresh in my mind. I was so clear where I wanted to go, and I was so excited about it again that it would hold me for those spaces between the busy life for weeks afterwards. So I reckon half the words I wrote for this book would have been done on 2 brief writing retreats per year over the period, and the momentum that it carried me through afterwards. But in terms of routine in between the retreats, it's once the story and the characters are alive for me, they're with me all day and all night. Like, so I'm walking the dog, I'm in the shower, I'm in that liminal moment before you fall asleep, and they're there, the scenes are playing out. So when I do get a moment to write, it just spills out onto the page. It's a scene ready and just needing an outlet. So I never once had writer's block. I just always had a block on my time, and I would steal moments to just get it out. Like, this is building and I've got to get it out. So I think a lot of the process for me happens off the page, and then I just need a bit of time to get it onto the page.
I do want to talk to you about your creative process, but I just want to go back again to routine. Like, did that change for you going from um, before it was picked up to then needing to meet deadlines given to you?
Not really. Not a lot of writing happened for me after being picked up. My process to get to publication meant that that work had been done.
Mm.
I guess I did first draft. I learned the craft and I learned how to write and all of those things as I wrote the story, and then started submitting way too early, way earlier than you're supposed to, which is a rookie mistake, and got rejections. And then I was like, okay, I need a manuscript assessment. I need some beta readers and that kind of thing. So I did those things, and then I did rewrites, and then I did the Curtis Brown Write Your Novel course, which completely elevated everything and changed a lot for me. So I did a lot more rewrites. I did a lot of polishing before it ever got picked up, and I kept improving it if I got a rejection. So by the time Hawkeye said yes to me, the first structural edit that I expected didn't happen. I was waiting for a big structural edit. I never had a structural edit. I barely had proofread. It was just it had already been through the ringer so much by the time it got there that all I had was proofreads. So there was no routine attached to this book
It's
after
amazing.
being accepted by a publisher.
And it has, so for the one that you're trying to, what that you are writing now, are you trying to establish a routine so that you can get it done, or are you just relying still on the way that it has worked for you in the past, which actually I'm going to say I really love, and that's how I got a lot of words written
Yeah.
as well. In that, my writing group, we would go away and we would just smash it out, and
Mm.
I could walk away with 30,000 words in a short amount of time. But I'm curious, for this second one you're writing, are you still relying on that as a routine for you?
I think I have to. I feel like I'm busier now than I was with the first one. I've got kids who are 14 and 16 with a lot of sports and a lot more running around. So my daughter's going to get her license within the next few months, and I think that's going to change my life, and I'll be able to add a little bit of structure in. But right now, I'm at the mercy of the running around as well as work. So I don't think it's going to change very much. I've done some. I've only written about 20,000 words of this next book, and that happened before this year, which is the busyness in the lead up to launching a book. And the work attached to that has taken up the time I would spend writing. So I haven't really written this year. But in the time I did spend up until that point, the writing of 20,000 words, it's been the same. It's been writing retreats that's got me there, and then a little bit of momentum for a while at home, and
Mm.
then other things have taken over. So I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different, but I'm very aware now of what works for me in terms of I need the magic, and I need that invested time up front to get the momentum. So I know what it takes and I know it will come. I trust that now,
Mm.
whereas before it's just it was more looking back. I think, oh, that's how it happened.
Mm.
I didn't know what to expect the first time, but now I have faith in the magic.
Yeah, I love that so much. Tell me a little bit about your process, like how do the ideas come to you, and then how does it end up as that complete manuscript?
Yep. Um, For me, I read an article in 2018 about the Fenian Irish soldiers who were on board the last convict ship to arrive in Western Australia. This article was about the 150th anniversary of the arrival, and it was an article in a newspaper that sparked something for me and set me off on research and set my imagination alight. And I found out that there was an affair that happened between John Boyle O'Reilly, who was on board that ship, and the warder's daughter when he was assigned to a convict road gang here in Bunbury. And so that just really sparked it. And it was, for me, I'd always known I would write a book, but I didn't know what my story was yet. And it was like it's happened to me a few times in my life, non-creatively, just about life moments where I just had this moment where I'm like, oh, for that, it was my story's here. And I knew it was my story. So I had that spark, and then there were a couple of other sparks. I had three things come together that formed the full story for me. Um, and I knew I had it, but I didn't start writing for 2 years after that seed was planted. I went off researching for 2 years on the 1860s in Bunbury, about the Fenian Irish soldiers and all sorts. And then in that 2 years, I was also learning the craft because I've always been a prolific reader, but I'm in finance. I don't have a creative writing degree or anything like that. And so I had a lot to learn, and I knew that. So I was doing online courses and I was getting connected to the writing community and I was listening to podcasts and all the things to kind of immerse myself in this world of writing and the difference between being a reader and a writer and the things I had to learn to earn the right to write. So I didn't put pen to paper until 2021. And by then, in terms of process to turn that initial spark into a story, um, I think that 2 years was just a really worthwhile investment because I'd built the world in my head and the characters were fully formed and three-dimensional and living with me. So I think that's why writer's block never came once I started. It was just let's get this on the page. Um, So yeah, in terms of process, long time from seed to creation. And then because I was a rookie writer, a lot to learn. Even after I did that 2 years of learning the craft, it's only once you actually get a novel, get a story down that you realize how much more work you still have to do.
Mm.
And it was only I learned that after trying to submit way too early, and then I was like, now the work needs to actually begin. Like I've had the magic of writing a story. Now I need to turn it into something worth publishing.
Yeah, I that is so interesting. And also I just want to pick up on the research thing, how delicious those rabbit holes are to
Yeah,
fall into when you can just, you know, I've done a historical manuscript as well, and you can get so lost in those holes that you do have to kind of pull yourself back and go, now I just actually need to do the writing.
yeah. Which bits of this are relevant to my story? But it's fascinating. Like there's so many amazing stories in history before you even start with fiction. And you're just like, oh God, sometimes you have to check and go Google, like, how's nobody written this before? This is an amazing real story.
Mm,
And you just feel very blessed that it's come to you.
mm, mm. Speaking of things like that, where do you get your inspiration from? Is it people, place, uh, anything else?
I think
What
in terms
inspires
of
you?
in terms of inspiration for a story, I think what inspires me is story and character. So for that, like that seed was planted when I read something and I'm like, God, what a story. I could do something with that. And what kind of like what a character, what a man. With John Boyle O'Reilly, who inspired this story, I'm like, God, what kind of a man must he have been to do the things he did, to take the risks he did? And when I learned that he had this affair with the warder's daughter, thinking in a time like that, how brave must she have been? How much in love must they have been? Um, what risks were they taking? What kind of a world were they living in where how hard would it have been for them to be together? So it's story and it's people for me that
Mm,
inspires the idea. In terms of inspiration for creativity or, wanting to get down and write, I need space for that. Um, Life is hectic, and so I tend to be more creative when I'm on holiday. When I have the space to breathe and to observe and go into my imagination. Yeah, I need space, and I don't have a lot of that. So it can come in the little spaces in a busy day, just walking the dog and things like that, and being out in nature. Um, but yeah, I think you have to be quite intentional about creating space.
mm. I think so too.
It doesn't just come without us making it happen.
No, I think you can get that magic too, but you got to nurture it. You can't just be busy through life and not pay attention to the magic.
Pay attention. Yes. We need to pay so much more attention, I think, as
Yeah.
creative people, to the world around us. If you were to be having a chat with someone about their own creative work, maybe they're thinking about doing something creatively or they've hit a kind of stuck point, what wisdom would you want to share with them?
Hmm. Um, I think creating space, getting away from the grind and the chores, creating space, getting out in nature and observing. And it doesn't have to be nature, it's just observing human dynamics. Like I find it in the dynamics of a family at an airport, like just watching human behavior and like, taking some time to do that. And for me, it's squeezing it in into, I've just dropped one of my kids at footy for their warm up and I have an hour and I'll sit in a cafe and then just, I'll get the computer out and do some writing and I'll be looking around me and observing. So I think any opportunity you can get to observe and create space. I also really valued that those on those writing retreats with those two different friends, you didn't have to critique each other's work so much, but sometimes just sitting down, going, I'm at this spot and I'm working through this because I found myself on a loop or I found myself paused, like I get to a certain point and I don't know where to go with a scene, and just brainstorming, like just throwing some more ideas on the table and they might not be the right idea, that might not be the answer, but there's something about throwing some more ideas on the table. It's like throwing puzzle pieces on a table, and it just, I don't know if it disrupts the synapses or something. It just stops that loop and that pause, and it just opens things up and throws more into the mix. And I'll find then it'll be like that night as I'm falling asleep, something will click and be like, oh, it's not going to be that, but it could be this. And it was that exercise that opened it up for me. So if I'm
Mm,
paused, I find that really helpful because I do sometimes get myself on a loop and I need disruption, and other people are good for that.
mm. I love that as well. Do you carry, like, have you always got a notebook in hand just in case, one of those moments where you are watching, say, that family and their
Yeah,
dynamics?
I want to do more of that, but I do. I have notebooks all over the house. And like just recently with the second book, and this is how I know I'm onto another good thing with the second book because I've had these moments of magic again. So with my first book, I had this moment where I was scribbling in a notebook and a whole scene came to me long before 2021 when I started writing this book. But I had this story in my mind. So this whole scene came to me and I scribbled it out longhand. And it still exists in my published book. And it's almost the end of the book, but it's a full scene, fully formed, that was present years before I started writing. So those characters were that clear to me, that three-dimensional, that early on. And that's what I mean by magic. Like that sort of thing to just come to you. And so I've had that happen recently with the second book as well. And it just completely changed what I was writing because I had this whole scene come out. And I remember just running into the bedroom, grabbing my notebook and scribbling. My husband's sitting there. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, shh, I'm just going to get this. I wrote this whole scene out. And then I'm like, oh, so this is from another character's perspective. I'm not writing from that character's perspective. I really want this scene in the book. And it was like a little thing for me. It was like, actually, this is his story. This isn't
Mm.
her story. I need to change my perspective because I want this scene. And the reason this scene has come to me so strong is because this is his story. I was telling it as if it was hers, but actually it's his. So those little moments,
I just
notebooks are
got
great.
goosebumps.
But notebooks are great for that, like just that
Yeah.
scribble. I mean, something pops in your head and something more personal and direct about a notebook than go into the computer with that. I don't know why, but it's like get it down. It feels old school. I really like that.
I think there's something magical about writing in a notebook as opposed to typing it into the computer. Typing it in seems to be much more of a, um, it's like you are in the process of writing the story now. Whereas I
Mm.
think the notebook, there's something more raw and beautiful about
Yes,
that,
I
but
agree.
no
And
one
you
else
get
is
to
going to
keep
see
it
it.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to keep it. You get to look back. Like I've still got that scene scribbled that years before I started writing from the first book, and I'm like, I'll keep that forever and tell that story. Look, I wrote this before I even had started the novel, and look here in my book, it's still there. Um, that's special. You don't get to keep that with typing because you overwrite. You type over the top, and you lose that. Um, yeah, as you say, the rawness and that like organic early creativity isn't evident on the screen.
Mm. Do you have a different notebook for as in, do you keep one notebook for this is for this story, and so any other ideas I need to use a different notebook, or is it all just going in one? I'm asking this for my own personal thing because I have
Oh,
notebooks full of so many things.
same. It's definitely not one notebook per book. It's many notebooks per book, but I do start a new notebook for a new book or a new idea. So the first one I've got about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 notebooks because it was from the research. It was learning to write and any ideas and inspiration, and then it was the story itself, and they're all mixed together. And I'm a terrible researcher as well. I'm terrible at keeping good references as to where I found something, which is not great when it comes to doing your references in the back at the end and saying, where did I actually find that? So you have to go back as you're doing your final version and just verify everything. Did I get that right? Did I get it from a verifiable source? But what it's really good for is you don't get lost in the facts and the historical accuracy. I did all my research and then I couldn't find any of it, but the world was built. So I already knew, I had a picture of the time and the place and what was possible to be able to write my story. So then I just wrote it away and only went to check the things I needed to firm things up later. So it didn't bog me down.
Mm.
But I think the act of scribbling in notebooks helps you build the world.
Mm. I agree. I agree. It's where, I guess the characters can talk to us and
Yeah.
show themselves. And I love that, this character said to you, hey, it's actually my story. What are you
Yeah.
doing? Um, Tell me what fills your cup? What fills it back up for your creative cup, if you like?
Yeah. Um, I think it's definitely nature and space and general joy. I think when I'm content and relaxed in life, my imagination is much busier. Um, yeah, when I'm on holiday, when I'm just with the family, when I'm not in the daily grind, when I'm out in the woods or on the beach or something, it's there. Um, but it's when a story sparks for me, that's self-fulfilling too. Like
Mm,
that's the bit that's going to get a story written when something comes to me and I can nurture it and appreciate it's here. Then that just keeps growing and it can grow without having to find a week of space. It can grow in all those little gaps in the day.
mhm. Tell me, Lynsey, what feels like home for you and your creativity?
I love that question because I love the concept of home. It really feeds into my book actually. Um, and because it's in my book and because I've thought about home, like when I'm writing a story, I don't go in with a theme or something I want to explore or something I'm preoccupied with that I want to ask or have readers ask of themselves. I don't go into it with any of that. So it was only when I did submissions and had to do a pitch that says what are the themes you explore. I was like, oh, I'm actually exploring the concept of home. And so that made me think and made me appreciate what do I think about home? When do I feel home? And I feel home whenever and wherever I'm with my people. And if I've got them with me and if they're healthy and safe, then I'm home. And I think it's the same with my writing, with my stories. When I've got my characters, when they are fully formed and three-dimensional and hanging out in my head and playing out full scenes, I'm home. I know I've got it. I know I've got a story. Like there's no having to figure things out. Like these are real people for me. So when I've got my people, I've got my story.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much for making the time for this out of your very busy schedule. And I'm sure listeners are going to really enjoy hearing about this. So thanks for joining me on Creative Momentum with Meg and Lynsey.
Thank you so much, Meg. It was lovely to chat to you.
And also all the best with the launch, all the exciting, lead up to it, and, the joyful ride of launch time. Can you tell us the name of your book, please?
Sure, I'll show you.
Oh, even better.
I had that ready. That's Bailey Street, which is named after a little cottage in Fremantle Port, which is in my story, the home that connects past and present in my dual timeline.
Which I'm just going to pick up on you using the word home again, that you said it's also in this new one that you're writing. Is this a theme that you may always be drawn to, do you think?
I think it might be, because in both there is a home that connects past and present, and it's easier in the new story that I'm writing in that it is the characters in both timelines live in the same home. That's not the case with this one. It's more that is the home that connects past and present. So I think, it feels like that might be a common thing with my stories. I like the way that you can be in the same place, but a very different time, very different context, and yet the human heart is still the human heart, and we still battle with the same feelings and challenges. And I like the contrast of eras and the comparison of humans being just as they always were.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best for your launch. If you are in Perth, you're Perth, aren't you? Yeah. Maybe you can get along to one of Lynsey's events. I'm assuming you're having some events to launch this
Yes,
book.
I've got a few. I've got a launch starting in Melville on the 29th of July and a few more that are on my website. And I've got one in Brisbane as well.
Excellent. Well, best of luck with it all. I'm sure it'll be fun. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Meg. Take care.
Thank you, Lynsey, for so warmly coming on, and especially so close to your launch and in your very, very busy life. And thank you for being so generous in talking about the whole journey of doing this writing. Listeners, you can find the links to her book and where to find her in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, please do leave a review on Apple Pods. It just takes a couple of minutes and it helps others discover this podcast, and maybe it might be the thing that unlocks something for them for their own creative work. The tip jar's open if you'd like to support the podcast. The link is in the show notes page. A huge thank you to Yvonne Morton for the beautiful music that you hear accompanying this show. And if you are a writer or an artist who would love to have a chat with me about what home means for your creative work and about your creative process, then please do get in touch with me. There is a link on the show notes page for the expression of interest, or you can just send me an email at meg@megdunley.com. You've been listening to Meg Dunley chatting with Lynsey McDonnell. This is the Creative Momentum with Meg podcast. Until next time, please keep building your own creative momentum. Thanks for listening.